First contact fallout. The crystalline spires of New Geneva's diplomatic center caught the last rays of Earth's setting sun, casting prismatic shadows across Sarah Chen's desk. At 28, she was the youngest junior ambassador in the United Earth government's history, and possibly its last. The holoscreen before her displayed the same message it had for the past hour. Zarkili vessels approaching lunar orbit. First contact protocols initiated. Sarah's hands trembled as she straightened her formal diplomatic uniform. Her appointment to the first contact team had been controversial. Too young, too idealistic, they'd said. But she'd fought for this position, knowing humanity needed fresh perspectives for its first encounter with an advanced alien civilization. The Zarkili ships that appeared in lunar orbit were unlike anything human engineers had conceived. Their organic-looking vessels seemed to pulse with internal light, more like deep-sea creatures than spacecraft. The delegation that arrived at New Geneva continued this theme. The aliens stood nearly 8 feet tall, with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions and 4 arms that moved with unsettling grace. The initial meetings went smoothly, perhaps too smoothly. The Zarkili presented themselves as benevolent advisors, offering to help humanity join the greater galactic community. But Sarah noticed things others missed. The way the alien skin flickered dark purple when discussing Earth's military capabilities. The careful questions about human genetic diversity. The subtle dismissal of humanity's technological achievements. When the Zarkili ambassador, Valakor, presented their offer of protection and guidance, Sarah was the only one who recognized it for what it was. A velvet glove hiding a steel fist. The terms would have effectively turned Earth into a protectorate, stripping away human autonomy while preserving the illusion of independence. Her superior, Senior Ambassador Williams, was ready to accept. "It's the best deal we'll get," he insisted during the emergency session. "We're centuries behind them technologically. We need their protection." Sarah stood, her heart pounding. Permission to address the council. Williams frowned but nodded. Sarah took a deep breath and activated her datapad's holographic display. These are the settlement patterns of previous civilizations that accepted Zarkili protection. The display showed dozens of worlds, each following the same pattern: initial prosperity followed by stagnation and eventual cultural collapse. The Zarkili aren't offering protection. Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger. "They're offering comfortable extinction. They see us as primitive, dangerous, and in need of control. But they've missed something fundamental about humanity." She switched the display to show humanity's history of innovation. "We've gone from first flight to landing on our moon in just 66 years. From simple computers to quantum AI in less than a century. We don't need protection. We need partners, and if the Zarkili won't be those partners, we'll find others who will." The room erupted in argument. Through it all, Sarah noticed something fascinating. Valakor's skin had shifted to a color she'd never seen before, a deep gold that seemed to shimmer. The alien's 4 eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. When the shouting subsided, Valakor spoke. "Never in our history has a junior representative dared to challenge a protection offer." The alien's translator conveyed amusement, but Sarah detected something else in those multifaceted eyes: respect. "There's a lot about humans that might surprise you," Sarah replied, maintaining eye contact. "We're not looking for protection. We're looking for equals, and we're prepared to prove ourselves worthy of that equality." Valakor's skin rippled with colors Sarah couldn't interpret. Perhaps the alien said slowly, "We have been hasty in our assessment. Junior Ambassador Chen, would you be willing to continue this discussion in a less formal setting?" That was the moment everything changed. Sarah recognized it instantly, not just for her career or for Earth, but for the future of human-alien relations. She cracked open a door that no one else had even seen. "I would be honored," she replied, careful to maintain diplomatic composure despite her racing heart. "Though I hope you understand that any discussion will be from a position of mutual respect." Velicor's skin settled into that fascinating golden hue. Indeed, I believe we have much to learn from each other. The alien turned to address the full council. The protection offer is withdrawn. Instead, we propose a period of cultural and technological exchange, with Junior Ambassador Chen as the primary liaison. As the council chamber erupted once again in shocked discussion, Sarah caught Williams staring. As the council chamber erupted once again in shocked discussion, Sarah caught Williams staring at her with a mixture of disbelief and newfound respect. She'd just rewritten humanity's first chapter in galactic politics. But as she watched Velicor's calculating gaze sweep the room, she knew this was just the beginning. The real work and the real dangers lay ahead. Humanity had avoided becoming a protectorate, but now they had to prove they deserved a seat at the galactic table. And Sarah had a feeling she'd just volunteered to be the tip of that particular spear. The human element. The Zarkali diplomatic vessel, Starweaver, hummed with an energy Sarah could feel in her bones. 3 months had passed since the protection offer withdrawal, and she'd spent most of that time aboard this living ship, learning more about galactic politics than any human before her. But something wasn't adding up. "Your civilization has achieved remarkable progress," Velicor said, leading her through corridors that seemed to breathe. "Yet you resist neural enhancement, genetic optimization, even basic cognitive upgrades. Why limit yourselves?" Sarah watched maintenance drones scuttle across the ceiling like metallic insects. "Humans don't see it as limitation," she replied. "We see it as preservation. Our imperfections drive us to innovate." Velicor's skin rippled with skepticism. Innovation through imperfection. A curious concept. Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden tremor through the ship. Velicor's skin flashed warning colors seconds before the emergency alerts began. "Hull breach in Science Sector 7, an automated voice announced. "Containment failing." Velicor's 4 arms moved in rapid patterns, interfacing with the ship's neural network. "Impossible. Those barriers are rated 4. The alien stopped mid-sentence, eyes widening. "The specimens are loose." Sarah's blood ran cold. During her time aboard, she caught glimpses of the ship's research facilities. The Zarkali conducted experiments on various species, claiming it was for peaceful purposes. She'd had her doubts. "What specimens?" she demanded. "Classified." Velicor snapped. "Return to your quarters immediately." Instead, Sarah pulled up the ship's schematics on her datapad, a privilege she'd insisted on as part of the cultural exchange. Science Sector 7. That's 3 decks down. The containment systems are biolinked to Zarkali physiology, aren't they? That's why the backup systems aren't engaging. Velicor's skin turned ash gray. "How did you?" "Because humans notice patterns," Sarah interrupted. "Your entire ship runs on biological interfaces calibrated for Zarkali biology. But I bet I can reroute emergency protocols through the maintenance systems. They're designed to work independently." She was already running toward the nearest maintenance access point, thankful for the hours she'd spent studying the ship's architecture out of simple curiosity. Velicor called after her, but she ignored the alien's protests. The maintenance tunnel was cramped, clearly not designed for human use. Sarah pulled herself through it, following the pulsing energy conduits. She could hear chaos erupting below. Screams, roars, the sound of rending metal. Her fingers flew across her datapad, interfacing with the maintenance network. The Zarkali systems were elegant but rigid, designed for efficiency rather than adaptability. Sarah's advantage was thinking outside their carefully constructed boxes. "Come on," she muttered, bypassing security protocols. "Reroute emergency power. Override bioauthentication." And the ship shuddered as new containment fields snapped into place. Through the maintenance shaft's grating, she saw energy barriers materializing, trapping the escaped specimens, creatures that looked disturbingly like hybrid combinations of multiple species. "Containment restored," the ship announced. "Threat level reducing." Sarah slumped against the tunnel wall, adrenaline still coursing through her system. When she finally emerged, she found Velikor waiting with a security team. The alien's skin was cycling through colors so rapidly it was almost hypnotic. "You violated multiple security protocols," Velikor said. "Accessed restricted systems. Witnessed classified research." "Research?" Sarah's voice was sharp. "Those were weapons. Living weapons. You're not just studying species, you're combining them. Creating biological weapons for." She trailed off as the pieces clicked together. The careful questions about human genetic diversity. The dismissed protection offer. The Zarkali hadn't given up on controlling humanity. They'd just changed tactics. "How many other species?" she demanded. "How many others did you study before deciding they were too dangerous to leave free?" Velikor's skin settled into a deep midnight blue. "You understand nothing. The galaxy is vast and hostile. Sometimes protection requires preparation." "Preparation for what? War? Genocide?" Sarah stood her ground as the security team tensed. "Humanity won't be your next experiment, and now we have proof of what you're really doing." Proof. Velikor's translator couldn't quite capture the mix of amusement and threat in the alien's tone. "You have no proof, and even if you did, who would believe you? A junior ambassador making wild accusations about one of the galaxy's most respected civilizations." Sarah smiled. "Check your security logs. Every maintenance drone in this sector records everything it sees. Standard protocol, right? And since I rerouted emergency systems through maintenance control." Velikor's skin went pure white. Sarah had spent enough time studying Zarkali biology to know what that meant. Shock. "Those recordings are being transmitted to my staff on Earth right now," she continued. "Along with my analysis of your containment system's weaknesses. I'm not just some primitive you can manipulate. None of us are." The security team looked to Velikor for orders, but the alien seemed frozen in calculation. Sarah pressed her advantage. "You have two choices," she said. "Either arrest me and prove to everyone that we're right not to trust you, or we can start having honest negotiations. Real ones this time, between equals." For a long moment, the corridor was silent except for the hum of the ship's living systems. Then Velikor's skin slowly shifted to that rare golden hue Sarah had seen only once before. "Perhaps," the alien said carefully, "we have more to learn from humans than we realized." Sarah nodded, keeping her expression neutral despite her pounding heart. She'd just changed the game again, but the real challenge was still ahead. Now she had to turn this confrontation into genuine cooperation before someone decided she knew too much to be allowed to return home. Turning point. 2 weeks after the containment breach incident, Sarah found herself in an unprecedented position. The Starweaver had become a hive of activity as joint human-Zarkali research teams worked to understand a threat that made their previous tensions seem trivial. "The void rifts are expanding exponentially," Dr. Kira Rodriguez, Earth's leading quantum physicist, explained to the assembled team. The holographic display showed tiers in spacetime spreading across 3 star systems. At this rate, they'll reach both Earth and Zarkali space within months. Velikor's skin had taken on a deep purple shade Sarah had never seen before. "Our predictive models suggest the rifts are drawn to advanced technology. The more we use to fight them, the faster they spread." Sarah studied the data scrolling across her pad. The rifts had appeared shortly after her confrontation with Velikor, but they weren't a Zarkali weapon as some had initially suspected. They were something older, something that had been sleeping in the space between stars until awakened by the increasing energy signatures of expanding civilizations. "Show me the pattern analysis again," Sarah requested. The hologram shifted, displaying the spread of the rifts over time. Something about it nagged at her mind. "Dr. Rodriguez, does this remind you of anything?" The physicist squinted at the display. "It's almost like bacterial growth." "No, more like a search pattern," Sarah finished. "These aren't random tiers in space. They're looking for something. Velacor's skin rippled with interest. Explain. Sarah manipulated the hologram, highlighting the paths of the rifts. See how they branch but never cross their own paths. How they avoid areas they've already explored. This is an organized search, not a natural phenomenon. But searching for what? One of the Zarkeli scientists demanded. I think we're asking the wrong question. Sarah said slowly. We shouldn't be asking what they're searching for, but why they're searching now. She brought up a timeline of galactic development. The rifts appeared after we started our cultural exchange program, the first real cooperation between humans and Zarkeli in history. What if that's not a coincidence? Velacor's skin shifted to deep gold. The specimens, the alien said quietly. Our attempts to combine species, to create perfect biological weapons, we were approaching it wrong. The strength isn't in forcing combinations. It's in will and cooperation. Sarah finished. Different species working together naturally, bringing their unique perspectives and abilities. Like how human creativity and Zarkeli biological technology together solved the containment breach. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Rodriguez was the first to speak up. You're suggesting these rifts are some kind of test, a galactic filter to push species toward cooperation rather than competition. Look at the evidence, Sarah said. The rifts ignore pre-industrial civilizations. They're drawn to advanced technology, but only when it's used in isolation. The only systems that have successfully resisted them are those where multiple species work together. Velacor moved to the center of the room, all four arms moving in complex patterns that made the holographic display dance. If you are correct, then our entire approach has been wrong. Not just to the rifts, but to galactic civilization itself. Sarah nodded. The galaxy doesn't need protectors or weapons. It needs bridges between species. Different perspectives working together to solve problems neither could solve alone. A beautiful theory, one of the Zarkeli scientists said dismissively. But how does this help us stop the rifts? Because now we know what they're looking for, Sarah replied. They're looking for proof that we can overcome our divisions, and I think I know how to give them that proof. She turned to Velacor. Remember how I rerouted your containment systems through maintenance control? What if we did something similar on a larger scale? Use human adaptability to create new paths through Zarkeli biotechnology. Velacor's skin shifted through several colors before settling on that deep gold that Sarah had come to recognize as revelation. A bridge between systems, just as we must be bridges between species. The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. Human computer scientists worked alongside Zarkeli biotechnologists, creating hybrid systems that neither species could have developed alone. They weren't just combining technologies. They were developing entirely new ways of thinking about space, time, and reality itself. When they finally activated the hybrid system, the effect was immediate and stunning. The rifts didn't close, they transformed. What had been tiers in space-time became bridges, connecting different regions of space in stable, controllable ways. By the first stars, Velacor breathed, skin shimmering with colors Sarah had never seen before. They weren't destroying space. They were trying to teach us how to reshape it. Sarah watched as the transformed rifts pulsed with new energy, creating a network of stable passages between star systems. They needed to know we were ready, that we could see beyond our differences and work together. And now, Dr. Rodriguez asked. Sarah smiled. Now we really start exploring. Together. Hidden talents. The transformed rifts changed everything. 6 months after their discovery, Sarah stood in the observation dome of Nexus Station, watching ships from a dozen different species pass through the newly established transit network. The massive space station, built through joint human-Zarkeli efforts, served as both a physical and cultural intersection point for galactic civilization. Still finding it hard to believe, Velacor asked, approaching silently despite their considerable size. The alien skin rippled with comfortable blues and golds. colors that had become familiar during their months of cooperation. Sometimes, Sarah admitted, a year ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now look at us. She gestured to the bustling station around them, where humans worked alongside not just Zarkili, but representatives from numerous other species that had been drawn to their successful collaboration. The Merithrol want to establish formal diplomatic relations, Velikor said, referring to a species of crystalline beings who had previously isolated themselves from galactic affairs. They say our handling of the Rift crisis demonstrated, what was their phrase? Unprecedented potential for harmonious advancement. Sarah smiled. They're not wrong. Every species brings something unique to the table. The Merithrol's quantum consciousness could revolutionize our understanding of the Rift's turned bridges. A soft chime interrupted their conversation. Priority alert from the research division. Sarah's smile faded as she read the message. We need to get to the labs. Now. The research wing of Nexus Station hummed with activity. Dr. Rodriguez stood before a complex holographic display, her expression grave. The network is evolving, she announced as Sarah and Velikor entered. The bridges aren't just connecting space, they're starting to connect time. Impossible, one of the Zarkili scientists declared. Temporal mechanics are strictly regulated by laws we thought we understood. Sarah interrupted, studying the data, just like we thought we understood spatial mechanics before the rifts appeared. She turned to Velikor. Remember what you said about the specimens, about how forcing combinations wasn't the answer. Velikor's skin shifted to thoughtful purple. You believe these temporal anomalies are another test? Not a test, Sarah said slowly, ideas crystallizing. An invitation. Look at these patterns. They're similar to the original rifts, but more complex, multidimensional. Dr. Rodriguez nodded excitedly. Yes, the temporal distortions aren't random. They're forming stable loops, like synapses, Sarah finished. Neural pathways on a cosmic scale. The bridge network isn't just a transportation system. It's becoming a galactic nervous system. And we're all part of it. The implications stunned the room into silence. Velikor was the first to recover, their skin cycling through colors so rapidly it was almost hypnotic. The specimens we created, we were trying to force evolution. But true evolution happens naturally, through cooperation and adaptation. And now it's happening on a galactic scale, Sarah said. Each species that joins the network adds its own unique perspective, its own way of thinking and processing reality. We're not just building bridges between stars, we're building bridges between consciousness itself. A new alert flashed across the displays. More temporal anomalies were forming, but they weren't causing damage. Instead, they were creating stable points of connection between different moments in time, like memories in a vast cosmic mind. The original rifts, Dr. Rodriguez breathed. They weren't weapons or threats. They were growing pains. The galaxy itself is becoming conscious, and it needed us, all of us, working together, to help it happen. Sarah watched as new data poured in from across the network. Species that had once been rivals were now sharing discoveries, combining their knowledge in ways that would have been impossible months ago. The hybrid systems they'd created to transform the rifts had become the foundation for something far greater. We need to call an emergency session of the Galactic Council, Velikor said, their voice filled with an emotion the translator couldn't quite capture. Every species needs to know. A brilliant flash of light filled the lab, and for a moment, Sarah felt connected to every consciousness in the network. Human, Zarkili, Merithrol, and dozens of others. All unique, all vital, all part of something vast and wonderful, and just beginning to awaken. When the light faded, she knew they had reached another turning point. The galaxy wasn't just a collection of stars and planets and species anymore. It was becoming something new, something that had never existed before. A union of countless minds and perspectives, each maintaining their individuality while contributing to a greater whole. And humanity, with its ability to adapt and think creatively, would help guide the way forward. Unity Forge. 1 year after the emergence of the galactic consciousness, Sarah Chen stood before the assembled representatives of 37 spacefaring civilizations. The grand chamber of Nexus Station hummed with an energy that was both physical and psychic, the combined consciousness of hundreds of species connected through the bridge network. A year ago, she began, we thought we were facing a crisis. Rifts in space-time threatened to tear our civilizations apart. Instead, they brought us together in ways none of us could have imagined. The chamber's holographic displays showed the current state of the network, a vast, living web of connections spanning the galaxy. What had started as simple spatial bridges had evolved into something far more profound, a shared consciousness that preserved and celebrated individual perspectives while enabling unprecedented cooperation. Humanity's greatest strength, Sarah continued, was never our technology or our biology. It was our ability to adapt, to see patterns, to imagine new possibilities. But we've learned that every species has its own unique strengths. The Zarkali's deep understanding of biological systems, the Merithral's quantum consciousness, the Venn Collective's temporal insights. Apart, we were limited. Together, we're part of something greater than ourselves. Velikor, now serving as the head of the Joint Species Research Initiative, stepped forward. Their skin displayed that now familiar golden hue that had become recognized across species as a sign of breakthrough understanding. The specimens we once created in our laboratories were poor attempts to force evolution, the alien acknowledged. We thought we could engineer perfection. Instead, perfection engineered itself through cooperation, through bridges built not of metal and energy, but of trust and mutual respect. The displays shifted to show the latest data from the network. The temporal bridges had stabilized, allowing controlled information exchange, not just across space, but across time itself. But more importantly, they had revealed something extraordinary, echoes of similar networks in other galaxies, reaching out across the intergalactic void. We're not alone, Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder. The process we've witnessed, this galactic awakening, it's happened before, is happening now in countless other galaxies, and for the first time in cosmic history, we can reach out to them. The chamber erupted in excited discussion, hundreds of different species communicating in their own unique ways, but all connected through the network. Sarah felt the familiar sensation of multiple consciousnesses brushing against her own, not invasive, but inviting, sharing perspectives and insights that would have been impossible to convey through words alone. Dr. Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. We've detected a signal through the temporal bridges. It's coming from our own galaxy, but millions of years in the future. The chamber fell silent as the message was decoded and displayed. It wasn't in any known language. It didn't need to be. The network translated it directly into understanding, shared simultaneously across all connected minds. You have taken the first steps. You have built bridges where there were walls. You have turned division into unity, fear into wonder. Welcome to the cosmic conversation. Sarah felt tears in her eyes as the full impact hit her. They hadn't just saved their civilizations or unlocked the secrets of space-time. They had helped their galaxy take its first steps toward joining a universal community of consciousness that spanned space, time, and dimensions they were only beginning to understand. So, she said, looking out at the assembled representatives, shall we answer? The response was unanimous, expressed not in words, but in a surge of shared purpose and excitement that rippled through the network. Humanity had found its place, not as rulers or subjects, but as bridge builders, helping to forge connections between species, between galaxies, between moments in time. Velikor's skin shimmered with all the colors Sarah had come to know, plus some she had never seen before. The specimens we created were meant to be weapons, they said softly. Instead, we became something far more powerful. We became friends. As Sarah prepared to help transmit their first response to the future, She reflected on how far they'd come. From a junior ambassador fighting to prevent human subjugation to a key figure in galactic evolution. But it wasn't her achievement. It was everyone's achievement. Every species that had chosen cooperation over conflict, understanding over fear. The bridge network pulsed with energy as they began their transmission. Humanity's first words to their future selves carried on waves of thought and trust and hope, echoing across time and space. We are ready to learn. We are ready to grow. We are ready to build bridges across the stars. The response was immediate, not just from the future, but from countless other awakening galaxies across the cosmos. The conversation that would shape the future of consciousness itself had begun. And humanity, once a tiny civilization on a small blue planet, had helped make it possible. The end.